Hello and welcome to the Ruthless Dog and Pony Show. My name is Julio Panicello. I am the Dream Alchemist at Ruthless Painters, a free range art school, atelier, and gallery for present day romantics. And This is an interesting situation here. Instagram keeps changing stuff, and also I'm wearing a dark piece of clothing, so it just changed the whole situation. But anyhow, welcome and thank you for being here. With each and every episode, we reveal the theme of our next painting collection, so you can find out what we will be painting and also the reason why. And we're doing it now bi-weekly, so it gives us an extra week to work on our paintings, and this is the second time we're doing this, the second bi-weekly collection, and we already have noticed a difference in the quality and the sophistication of the work that is being produced for the collection, for the series. We also explain the different possibilities for visual representation of the concept, using images of paintings throughout art history as inspiration while citing stylistic and historical references. We explain where the painting theme comes from and how it relates to our contemporary time. And our episodes are like our paintings, messy and predictable and unvarnished. So bear with us if there are some technical difficulties. But we keep them under 30 minutes. We try to make them shorter than that. And all of them can be found on Instagram as posts, also on our YouTube channel. We have Ruthless Painters YouTube channel, and at the same time you can just, if you prefer, find them as podcasts in any podcast platform. You just type the Ruthless Dog and Pony Show, and a bunch of episodes will pop up. So I'm gonna, after this introduction that we do every single week, because it just it gives us the opportunity to wait a little bit before we start explaining, so more people can join. And we're gonna start introducing the assignment. I'm gonna bring the first image. We have a few paintings and a few photographs. So this week, for some reason, we found ourselves listening to a podcast that talked about Dune, the movie, and a very specific part of the movie. I haven't watched the movie yet, the new version of the movie, but I did watch the David Lynch version for a while ago. So I remember this very specific moment and scene. So apparently in the book, which I haven't read, it's at the very beginning of the book, and it's when the protagonist puts his hand inside of a box, and the box contains pain. So the person talking about this particular scene, and this is the image of the movie that captures that, talks about hands, and talks about pain, and talks about pain being a psychological thing, in addition to being a physical thing. And the person talks about sort of like withstanding pain as a means of like going through it. So it was a sort of like a philosophical talk about the idea of pain, using scene in this specific movie. But it caught our attention because of the idea of hand as being an extension of our own being. And we were just looking back and thinking if we did any specific collections of paintings in which hands were featured. And we have done quite a few, but um, I don't recall in the past like years, I don't recall any specific collection of paintings dedicated to our own, to making a portrait of our own hand. So this will be the theme of this painting collection, using our hand as the subject for our painting and um, documenting our place in time, our physicality, our the present moment through a portrait. And we call it a portrait because as some of you know, when we talk about portraiture, we talk about hands being after the face, the most expressive part of ourselves. So that's why we're using the term portrait referred to our hand. The title of the series, the collection, will be My Hand, because there's a Louis Bourgeois painting or installation in which she essentially traces her hand in red over a piece of paper that is hanging. And the title of the piece is My Hand. So that will be the title of this collection, this series. And we have gathered a few paintings of hands, not paintings of portraits that have the hands cropped, but paintings of hands, because hands have historically been subjects that have been favored by artists throughout art history, starting from the very first artist, human artist, thousands of years ago, up to today. So um, let me just go ahead and show you just some of the paintings. I'm just gonna. So this is one of the paintings that we selected as an example. As we said in the introduction, we are just showing some examples of the subject or the theme throughout art history, so we get an idea of how we can sort of like tackle this compositionally or This is another example, and you probably are familiar with the style. Yes, it's Egon Schiele. He lived between 1890 and 1918, and so very short life, and he did a lot of representations, or he used a lot of like figures as subjects for the painting, his paintings. And this is an example study of hands. Um, and yeah, he was an Austrian expressionist painter. He was a protege of Gustav Klimt, and he was a major figurative painter of the early 20th century. So his work is noted for its his work is noted for its intensity and its raw sexuality, and the many self-portraits the artist produced, including nude self-portraits. So the twisted body shapes and the expressive line that characterize Schiele's paintings and drawings mark the artist as an early exponent of expressionism. So we're going to make a connection between Egon Schiele and Ingres, so the neoclassical painter, and how far and how distant both representations of hands actually are. One being the guardian of orthodox painting, and the other one using exaggeration and distortion on his work to create um, an emotion and a sexual content that he was much more interested in. So, and the collection of paintings this in the next 2 weeks will be titled My Hand. We're doing portraits of hands, and we're just showing different examples of visual representations of hands by artists throughout art history, mostly contemporary, I would say, or from the Renaissance until this past year. We're going to show a couple of painters that paint hands. So we're going a step further in this idea of not conforming to conventional academic terms, and we're showing now a painting by a Turkish artist. Let me just find, so Abidin Dino, and he lived between 1913 and 1993, and this sketch or drawing or charcoal was done in 1950, and that's another example of not conforming to orthodox principles in regards of like visual representation. We're using this as an example, a suggestion for different positions of our hands when we create the image reference for our paintings. We're using this also as a inspiration or idea about the scale and the composition within the format. This is not a cropped painting, it's the actual entire piece. So notice the scale and how it occupies the majority of the format, and how close it gets to the edges, even though we say this is a red flag. But there's something also interesting about the different height of the fingers. And so from the conceptual point of view, there's obviously a very expressive approach to portraying the hand. But from a technical point of view, scale and composition and variations on the fingers, there could be an idea here to inspire us to do our own version with our own hand. And by the way, again, it's something that we've never done before, and this comes with it comes from a podcast we listened to this week, talking about the scene in the movie Dune, the new version, the Ridley Scott version, in which the protagonist puts the hand inside of the box and then experiences pain even though there's nothing inside of the box. And there was a reflection about the physicality of our bodies and the psychology of pain, and how sometimes there's a component of pain that's psychological, and that the best thing that we could do or that we could cope with is just going through it. And so that's one part of the inspiration for the week. And there's another part that we just found a few days after. But I'm going to show you two contemporary painters that use hands in their work. This was done in 2019. This painting is by Caspar White. Caspar White, a Welsh contemporary painter born in 1981. It's an oil painting and it's not that big, 13 by 20 inches. But again, a different approach to painting a hand in which there's a little bit more context. So obviously you could see the part of the body cropped, and there is a relationship between both hands. Compositionally, it's a very interesting and smart arrangement of verticals and diagonals, and also color-wise a very interesting separation or dichotomy between neutrals on the background and flesh tones on the focal points. So stylistically, this sort of like brings a lot of classic elements. I wouldn't dare to say, this has a connection with the Leonardo da Vinci study of the hands, or the what was the other painter? I forgot, but anyhow. But still, it's interesting to see that throughout this section of time from the Renaissance to today, there's sort of like an inflection in the 20th century where people sort of like experimented with different styles in order to break with tradition. But it's wonderful to see that there's another inflection in the early 21st century in which classicism is not rejected, but and it's not embraced either. It's just there as an option on the menu, I guess. And two paintings by female painter, contemporary female artist that we love and we suggest you follow because she's amazing, and she is not being written about as much as other painters, contemporary figurative painters, but just keep an eye on her because her work is beautiful and also contemporary in the sense that it breaks tradition in a different way. So Kathleen Clark, 1988. She was born in 1988. She's an American painter. This is titled Both Hands, and it was painted in 2021, so this year. It's a 9 by 12 small little painting. She uses figuration, but at the same time she plays with color and composition, and also there's something to be said about looking at really hyper realistic hands from the Renaissance, and how with contemporary painters we are unapologetic about using representation in a way that fulfills the desires of anyone who thinks figuration should have a specific goal. So the hands are pink and red. There is a beautiful line quality on the edges that goes from a little bit sharper to completely or much more diffused, a la Richter, I should say, on the hand on the left, and especially that finger that is a little bit dissolved. And then also this surreal, very Tamara de Lempicka, using the same concept as, or painting as before, this surreal context in which the hands emerge from hair or dirt. There's green. We could make associations with grass, and then there's raw umber, really dark raw umber, maybe with soil. So there's something beautiful and gruesome, and conceptually that makes a really interesting and fun combination. I'm going to show you another painting by her, a little bit less surrealist, and this is titled Wilt, painted in 19. Yes, maybe fur. You're right. You're right, Dina. 19. I mean, I'm sorry. 2019, 2 years prior, maybe even before pandemic. We don't know. Maybe it could be an interesting way. We should reach out to her and ask her a couple of things. So first of all, hands in this particular painter, contemporary painter, obviously have been a subject of interest. We're looking at two different portraits of hands by the same artist, one in 2019 and the previous one in 2021. And we know that something really huge happened between those two years. So it would be interesting to ask her if she was aware of the pandemic with this hand, Wilt, and the title also really conceptually interesting, and also the fact that the other hands are coming either through fur or through the soil. um, there is something also interesting about the melancholy of both portraits of hands. So sorry about this extended version of the or this extended episode, but the final thing that hopefully you're still here, and the final thing that we wanted to say is that this week, as if sometimes we think of a subject, but because we are exposed to something that arises our the inspiration and focuses on something related to that, and all of a sudden it feels like the universe confabulates events and things around that thought that really pile up and build up your confidence in knowing that that's going to be the subject for the next collection of painting. And certainly enough, this was one example of that happening this week after that reflection, or that talk with the Dune episode. So I'm just gonna find it really quick. But the LA Times did a piece that it's fascinating, and I don't know if it caught your attention, but it certainly caught our attention. And so this is a piece that talks about Holocaust survivors living in Los Angeles, and it goes about saying that there's one survivor essentially left that still lives in Los Angeles. Talks about in general the survivors being now in their 80s and 90s. Talks about how the numbers are dwindling as age is taking their toll, and also because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs because I think they're beautiful, and then there was this image that it's so powerful. When all the survivors are gone, no living reminders, no witnesses will remain to the worst things human beings can do to one another. And then, quote, when Holocaust survivors tell us their stories, they give us a part of their lives. We not only discover the unimaginable pain and horror, but also find resilience, resistance, and hope. And this was said by Stephen D. Smith, who is the executive director of the USC SOA Foundation. It is vitally important we do not write this remarkable generation out of history. And the photographer of this article, her name is Madeline Hordinsky, and in the post, in the Instagram post, there are images of him as a young person, the ordeal that began during a winter journey to central Germany, where he was forced into the labor camp, and then this specific image, this photograph, or combination of photographs. Quote, I was completely frozen, end quote, he said. His hands turned purple, but somehow I survived. My hands survived. And they just put that quote along with this image. So when we saw this, we got chills because the initial idea of this is to document our physicality, our presence, and reaffirm our existence by capturing our present moment. And there's no better way of doing this than actually creating an object in the form of a painting. And we know that, and we know how objects are becoming more and more important. Especially, we talk about how in the digital realm that is around the corner or already here, it's just going to scratch everything off. It's just going to deny that physicality, and it's coming. And as artists, as visual artists who use painting, I think we are the last hill in just bringing that importance of the physicality of ourselves as artists and what we produce, objects that are in the form of paintings. So um, anyhow, so what's important also, and sorry to take this couple of extra minutes, is the fact that we then jumped to her Instagram account, and we're going to put all the notes of links and information on the newsletter or the email that we're going to send. But essentially, she goes a little bit deeper about this specific series of images, and I just want to find it because it is really beautiful and important. And so essentially, and this is something that happens to, or has happened to, many survivors, in which their families don't know their histories. And so he's 96 right now, and she says most survivors are in so 80s and 90s. And until recently, Andrew's family didn't know about most of his experiences during the war. A box inscribed prisoner of war food package his daughter Susan discovered in his closet just last month. It contained photos that were unexplored by their family for over 75 years. A box, a hidden box, contained images that he didn't want to show, or anyhow, we can talk about it like another time. But this idea of creating objects, time capsules, and how paintings can become time capsules of ourselves, and how by doing this painting of our hands, we will encapsulate our present time and our physicality on this painting. So this is going to be another extraordinary opportunity, not only to practice anatomy, because it's always fun to sort of like practice portraying a part of our bodies that we're not so familiar with visually, but at the same time conceptually, a really significant opportunity or important opportunity to encapsulate the present moment. So join us. Sorry about this cut, but thank you for still being here and listening to this rant or lecture or whatever. And we appreciate you so much. We're gonna try to stitch together in a video and then post it afterward. We're not sure we'll be able to do that, but please go to our website. We have a link. You can join us. It's only $20 for the remote session. And also we're going to continue doing this project or this collection for the next 2 weeks. So we have different opportunities for paintings to actually become or achieve their full potential, or as big of their potential as they can. And I think that's all. Thank you so much for joining us, and let's paint our hands for the next couple of weeks. Okay.